there may be an epistemic crisis, or maybe we're past the crisis and now in a revolution.
Yes, we are noticing the crisis now. And the crisis is we haven't really left the age of Galileo in terms of public knowledge. In Galileo's time, of course, the Catholic Church basically decided what everybody would believe. And when Galileo said contrary-wise, his voice was suppressed and he was made to recant, etc. And the top-down power structure of narrative creation persists to this day. Science, of course, was very much inspired by Galileo's strategy of epistemology and observing things. But the narrative propagation on a more global and society-wide scale has not changed at all. And we are experiencing the effects of that, and the inability of a centralized authoritative epistemology to adequately handle the nuances of the information age.
Right. And then science, let's, I guess, get science out of the way, because that's an epistemology in certain ways. Like,
sure.
So in that, like, if we take science out of it, then obviously public discourse, ideas, values, history, et cetera, all those kind of things are dictating how these narratives go about.
Right.
So what is it made? What has kind of brought about this kind of noticing about the crisis? Is this the internet? Is it us just becoming more evolved in our kind of ways to see society, et cetera?
The internet has been a tool for the realization of this, yes, as people are able to do research on their own and congregate into groups that share their beliefs and rely less on corporate media, which, despite its deceptive practices, has historically had a sort of unifying effect relative to now. So there's been this two-sided, double-edged sword evolution, where people have more independent ability to research and less reliance on a centralized media agency, and at the same time, less capacity for a unifying narrative. Is that clear?
Yeah, definitely. And then Idea Market aims to change the incentive landscape for creating that common knowledge.
Yes.
So we talked about the importance of common knowledge.
Yeah.
So then why is it now? Why is it needed now? Because that double-edged sword, it seems, or the pendulums, why is it,
Sure. So historically, the best knowledge has never overlapped with common knowledge. Great knowledge and common knowledge have always been mutually exclusive. And that's not necessary anymore. We have the technology for that to not be true anymore. And we haven't taken advantage of it. There's no need to be told what to believe, basically, and policed or mediated between like there was before the internet. Of course, for hundreds of years, a journalist who went to school and was trained and paid their dues and came up through the ranks of an organization that was trusted by industry and by the population to be a mediator between the edges of reality and first-hand sources on important stories, to mediate between all of that and the information consumer. It was perhaps the most efficient way to handle that problem. And now it's not only outdated, it's inadequate to the challenges of the information age.
And I mean, I think I love what you just said, the last word, inadequate, because today, being a human is way different than it was just 50 years ago, way different than it was just 10 years ago. And I think that, like, if you were to kind of visualize some of this information was almost at like a drip kind of, you'd get as much information as you could from the bodies at B, but then now it's just a fire hose. It's just, the whole thing's off, information's coming, you don't know if it's good, if it's useful, is it bad, etc. So in terms of that, like what, well, let's go back, I guess, to the history of the idea. So how did this all first come to be? Like, were you just thinking and had an aha moment, or was it more of a first inkling and that grew and you just kept building on it?
I don't remember exactly how it started, but I knew I was relatively new to crypto and had just learned to use exchanges and trade and stuff, and was thinking about the incentives involved and how the markets were basically a measure of confidence, and if you were right you made money, and if you were wrong you lost money. And this seemed like an excellent way to sort knowledge in general. And so I began to try to figure out how using exchanges and markets and trading venues, one could represent the components of human knowledge in some way. It's to introduce those same sorts of incentives without interference by a centralized body, just people competing, to curate what we already know, what somebody already knows.
Right.
Because as I said, the best knowledge tends to never overlap with the common knowledge. So if there's some freak in Tahiti who has figured out in his basement how to cure cancer 50 years ago,
right,
there's not really a means by which we would know that.
Yeah.
And
who knows what our trajectory and history would be from those little things throughout time. I guess you could say.
Right. So this is a human survival level issue, and we have the technology to access the best knowledge in a way that can be trusted to be organic, in a way that centralized control of media and narratives cannot be trusted. And it is time for us to use it. And
so from using that, then you I think this was something you tweeted, or I'm not for sure. We'll see about the attribution. But it was success is achieved not when lies disappear forever, but when the trend reverses from a competition to exploit, terrorize, and divide the public to a competition to serve, inspire, and unite it.
Yes.
That is a very different side of the coin.
Yeah.
Different objectives, different goals from the beginning. So how, for success, I guess let's talk about what success and failure would be in terms of not exactly narratives, but I guess the idea for idea markets.
Sure. So idea markets changes the incentives of knowledge, common knowledge creation. Right now, if you're a media corporation, which in itself is kind of an anachronism, you have media, corporation. Well, which one is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you trying to inform, or are you trying to profit?
Yeah.
Just the existence of such a thing as a media corporation is its own comment.
Right.
So in order for media corporations to profit, they have to do the things that result in retaining viewers. That often means encouraging polarization, because if you don't trust anyone else, you're not going to leave.
Sure.
And encouraging outrage, because if you're provoked, you're going to pay attention, even
Way
if it's
more.
negative attention.
Yep.
And fear, and using human psychological vulnerabilities to extract attention from us. We are basically being farmed by corporations that have access to our attention or profit from our attention. So the incentives there are to divide people so that they won't leave, to freak them out so that they won't turn it off, and so forth, to upset them so that they pay attention, and etc. So that's the direction that public knowledge is going. And the results of this, the effects of this, are readily apparent to literally everybody. There's not a baby born in Iraq that doesn't know there's a problem.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So what Idea Market does is it requires narratives to be backed by financial risk. So the way it works is it doesn't outright prohibit you from purchasing a high rank on the market and creating the appearance that you are well trusted. However, publishers that earn trust and earn this investment organically get that promotion for free. And it becomes increasingly expensive, prohibitively expensive, to fake that level of trust the more people participate. And as corporate media's attention worthiness not only continues to lag, but to be registered on this first global dashboard of what people really believe, they will be forced to either ignore the game or play it.
Right.
And if they ignore the game, they'll simply be left out. And if they play it, they will have to organically earn public trust.
Right, right. And then organically earn public trust. And that's through, I guess, prestige or the people. Well, let's go into how you would quantify that. Let's go into kind of how
Sure.
that kind of works.
Sure,
I guess
yeah.
you could say.
In terms of quantifying trust,
Yes.
we're quantifying credibility.
Mm-hmm.
And the way Idea Market allows that to occur is by inviting people to buy tokens that represent a publisher, NewYorkTimes.com, FoxNews.com, Infowars.com, WikiLeaks.org,
Sure.
etc.,
Mm-hmm.
in order to signal confidence. So in the same way that stock market exists so that the public can signal confidence in a company's future profitability, Idea Market is a decentralized marketplace that allows people to signal public confidence in a publisher's attention worthiness.
Yeah.
So that's the metaphor, the translation that's being
Mm-hmm.
done there. So in terms of measuring credibility, it's measured in risk. How much people have put into this to say, I bet that if more people see this, even more people than that will agree that even more people than that will want to see it.
Right.
And a purchase on Idea Markets is a wager on the attention worthiness relative to everything else in the market of a publisher. So if a corporation wants to compete with that, they will have to not only earn public trust compared to nothing, they'll have to earn it compared to any other potential choice the public might have.
Right.
So the way I would recommend that they do that is by scouting the hot small publications and absorbing their narratives, entertaining their theses, their evidence, bringing them into the conversation, because without taking on the investigative qualities of the publishers that are earning trust organically, there will be no way for a media corporation to continue to deserve trust.